record? Whoops.
Recording up in the top left.
Okay, now it is. Yeah, it started, it stopped. It should be going back again now. So please, everybody know we are now recording. You have been officially warned. Anything you say can and may be used against you in grading. Just kidding, I wouldn't do that. But it always makes me sound really official at the beginning of a class that way. So you guys, if you hadn't guessed it, we have not just me, but we have another old guy in the class tonight, Larry. And a couple of you may have seen him last semester in my class, or possibly the semester before. Don't even quite remember when. But Larry's going to speak to us during sort of probably our first hour-ish of class. I don't really care if we go very short or very long with Larry. We're going to use as much time as feels good to us, and as long as we're learning and asking questions on this. We're going to go over chapters 4 and 5 in class tonight. That's not going to take a long time. And then I'm going to have a homework assignment for you guys, which is actually going to help you with the research that you're doing on a brand right now. So it'll be a very easy homework assignment and one that will help you in doing the research for that brand. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing tonight. I don't think it's going to go super long, but we're going to give Larry pretty much as much time as it dictates. So we're butting up. We're really close to 7:05, so I think we will officially open and get started.
Hey Brian,
yeah.
Could I just see a thumbs up if they had seen you in either your wife's class or your class before?
How many of you have seen Larry? No, maybe not.
Okay, hopefully I can make this a treat.
So you guys, I'm going to give Larry just a brief introduction. Larry and I worked together at Gray Advertising, which at the time was one of the top 10 ad agencies in Los Angeles. This was back in the 1980s. Larry is a product of Los Angeles, grew up in Los Angeles, went to Loyola High School, went to USC for both his undergraduate work and his graduate work. I'm not even sure if he was finished with graduate work or just finished when he started teaching marketing at USC. Larry was working at Gray Advertising when I met him. Larry has worked as an account executive on a lot of accounts. He's very experienced. He and I share some similarities in what we've done in the years since then. Larry is a marketing consultant. He also has a very unique specialty in marketing in that he is an expert witness in court cases. I've been an expert witness a few times in my life for a couple different things, some for marketing, some for a couple other industries I've been in. Larry is actually one of the foremost expert witnesses in California for marketing and advertising. But he's also a consultant. He works with clients and has worked in a number of capacities, both on the agency side and on the client side. So he's a really knowledgeable guy. On top of that, he has taught marketing at many schools, at SC, at Pepperdine, at CSUN. He has taught, what have you taught? More than 70 classes, right? 70, 80
79.
Classes. 79 classes. Larry is also a very well-traveled guy. My caution to you is if you ever go on a trip anywhere and you see that Larry is either on your plane or your bus, take another plane or take another bus, because he will make the plane or bus stop to take photographs of billboards and advertisements in foreign countries because he thinks it's a great thing. And I'm sure everybody in the bus throws things at him because they want to go to the next site and he's busy taking pictures of billboards. But Larry has been a student of advertising and marketing his whole life. He's very bright at it. He's also, I think, a funny guy, and he makes this fun and interesting. So I always like him to come to our classes. Larry and I share not all of the same thoughts on marketing and advertising, but most of the same thoughts. And so I asked him tonight to sort of talk about marketing and branding from the brand perspective. Larry's also got some resources for you guys that he'll share with you tonight. And so with that, we're going to jump into Larry's presentation. There's going to be a little bit of interactiveness stuff on this. We're going to allow all the time in the world for questions. You can ask questions along the way, but if it's something that can wait till the end, that might just make it go a little bit quicker. And so I guess Larry is going to start now that he just pulled up.
I'm sorry, I was distracted. we also don't. I'm just practicing. So, are you okay?
Larry, I'm going to hand you the class. Class, this is Larry Stephen Landre, and he's going to talk to us tonight about marketing and branding. Take it away, Larry.
Hey, thank you, Brian. I'm always glad to support Woodbury. I told Brian that many, many years ago, my mother, who is no longer alive, did go to Woodbury, and so I've been to Woodbury many different times. This presentation is going to be on a wide range of subjects, but one of the things at the end, I think if you have questions, just jot them down and we'll do them, because most of my slides are going to be answered. Some of your questions will be answered by the next slide. So I call this really insights into the real world of marketing. I use the word Zoom because everyone's doing Zoom. No one's ever lived through the last 6 months. I give you credit that you're even learning with Zoom, which is so hard, learning in a classroom. But I'm going to talk about marketing. I'm going to talk about targeting, or what I call people under the 9 Ps. And I'm going to show you some ads, and I'm going to do some media. But I'm also going to, I've been to 87 countries, and I have shot them. Even though Brian said that I will stop a plane, I want you to know that I've never done that, nor do I really want to be arrested when I get off a plane. But I have stopped some buses, but I also try and make friends with the people on the bus and with the tour director. So we're going to talk about your career. We're going to talk about clients. We're going to talk about a lot of different subjects, but you may have wondered why some brands, some companies are more successful. And it's because they've done better research. They've done better insights. They've done better targeting, and targeting has both from a marketing standpoint and an advertising and media standpoint. They've done better planning. They have better people. They learn more, and that's one of the reasons why you're in class. They have better products. They use maybe 1 or 2 or all 9 of the 9 Ps. And companies have stories, and brands have stories. So I like using a quote from Leonardo da Vinci, which he talks about the science of art and the art of science. And I'm going to connect things that may be disconnected at times, but I believe that is a better way of learning when people present things that are real in the world, and not something out of a textbook. I'm going to look at this 2 different ways with you. That we're going to look at account managers or account executives or marketing managers, and that account executive is that link between the advertising agency and the client. The marketing manager is a link between the company and the agency and their other partnerships, which could be a media buying service. And they're going to, both of these groups are going to work on many different subjects, but I took the top 6 right there. So we can all agree that no one saw the world like this, even at the start of 2020. And we are living, and you're going to school in very interesting times. I found this just yesterday. About 50% of this is all new. And I wish the coronavirus started in Vegas, because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. That would have been a better thing. And then I like this slide. This is brand new too, and it has to do with arts and crafts. That if one person is using glitter, then think about the imagery, and this has to do with the virus, that all the people have glitter on their art projects. And this could be a lot of different age groups.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
So, class, I'm going to let you know that Larry goes really fast.
Oh, you want me to go slower?
And it's hard for me to sometimes keep up with him. You got to go back 1 slide, because I had no idea what you were talking about with the whole glitter thing. Now, we have some fashion marketing students with us. Maybe they got it. I'm going to be honest and say I have no idea what you're talking about when you talk about glitter.
Good. I just see a row of hands. If you've ever used glitter when you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 19, 20, that glitter is all over the room. See, you know what, Brian? You can learn so much from your students.
And I do.
Hey, I learn more. Yeah, you know, everyone says that. I learn something every day. Okay, can I move on now?
Yes, please.
So we're going to talk about these 9 Ps, and I'm going to show you how to use them. I'm going to talk about planning. I'm going to talk about branding. I'm going to give you real examples. I will give you things out of a textbook, but I teach 100% from a practical standpoint of what would happen with a client or an agency or a media buying service and working with these AEs or a marketing manager. I also think that the relationships and partnerships and alliances that people have are probably the most important things now in companies, that if you hire the right people, whether internally or externally, these are really important, and help you build sales. So I built the 9 Ps of marketing, and that I look at research and planning, I look at people and targeting, and I'm going to talk to you about that. I look at products and services, I look at distribution or place, and how you get a product from one place to another. Definitely price is an important thing, whether you're on Amazon or on any of the sites, and with different shopping carts. I'm going to break down a promotion into 8 ways. And one of the things that I give a presentation at several different law schools is that sometimes people think that advertising is marketing and marketing is advertising. And advertising is a very small part of all of marketing. And so you would use all of these different components and look at the passion of a product. I'm going to show you something I do with Fortnite versus Apple that is as current as can be, because yesterday Apple did a countersuit against Fortnite, or Epic, and then the presentation of all your different components under branding.
So
And
Larry, can I just,
yeah,
before you go further, do you mind just, if we go back to that slide for a moment that's got our 9 Ps on there?
I'm going to show the 9 Ps again.
Okay, but let's just go back for a moment. So
There you go.
Larry's diving into this 9 Ps, and we've not discussed that at all this semester. I've mentioned the 4 Ps, kind of the classic 4 Ps. You guys have probably had that in half the classes you've taken in the business department, right? So I want to give Larry a little pat on the back, but I also want him to just elaborate for just a minute on this. He learned the 4 Ps when he was in school. I learned the 4 Ps. You guys learned the 4 Ps. But one of the things that we have learned is the 4 Ps are actually a somewhat limited way of looking at what we do in marketing. So Larry, why did you come up with these, and how did you come up with these specific Ps?
I think they're easy to use. The 4 Ps were invented in 1960 by a guy named Jerome McCarthy, and he was paid a good amount of money, but there wasn't an internet until the 1990s. So I like using, and the most important one here, I think, is people and targeting. People and targeting is not one of the 4 Ps, and I believe your potential customers, and we're going to break down potential customers into 5 different ways, and it's another slide coming up. I believe that media buying services and the different distribution channels and partners that you have are very important. I believe that passion and who you hire is, and who you hire both as an alliance or a partnership or a relationship, is as important as maybe the product sometimes. The people can sell sometimes an average product. I want to mention that, and I put it on the top of this slide so you could jot down a note, but there are 2 places. Just go to my website and I'll come up with this again, but you can look under articles and research under laundrymarketing.com, or the 9 Ps, and it's 31 pages. You just download it, and it's free. I don't charge anybody it, and I know agencies and clients that have used the 9 Ps and still use the 9 Ps. It works for me, and when I first developed this was in the late 1980s, and I was in a meeting as a consultant, and I took a piece of paper and I divided it up into 9, and in about 4 or 5 hours of presentations, at the end I was one of 3 different consultants. And they looked at me and they said, well, what do you think we should do? Well, nobody else had a clue. And I had written down all of these things. And so I said, okay, how about let's break this down? And it was an easier way to explain what their problems and their opportunities are. So I'm going to move on, I think. And then if you got questions, we can do it. But I'm going to show them in different ways and show you some of these.
Okay.
So all of those 9 Ps, all of those different factors are very expensive financial and spending decisions, and ultimately it is or should be about generating sales, whether you're an account executive or a marketing manager. When you look at people and you also look at place, there are differences to whom you sell to and where you sell your products. Just the easy example is look what restaurants are doing, that or movie theaters. They may only have 20 or 25% of their table in a restaurant, or 20 or 25%, or as little as 15 of the theater. And just managing that seems to be a nightmare. To how do you handle that? How do you handle the safety of those issues? So I'm going to give you examples. So on this whom and where, you've got research, you've got planning, you've got the people and targeting, you've got promotion, breaking it down in many different ways, and you also have place or distribution. For only this presentation, I've never done this before, but I just came up with this, and I said, people or a target market, those are those groups or segments of potential buyers to whom a company wants to sell or promote their product. And I went, oh my God, I never thought of the Target department store. So under the demographics that you have, buyer's age is as a family. You also have family size, you have gender, you have race, you have life cycle, you have nationalities. Under geography, you could have countries, you could have states, you could have cities, you could have a neighborhood little store. Under technology, you end up having how efficient. Not everybody's efficient in using a computer and buying video games. Under psychographics, you look at the lifestyle and values of that potential customer. And then behavior, if you're buying a car, and I'm just using that example, that it may take you a month, 2 months, 9 months, a year to buy a new car and go to different dealerships. So what is the loyalty status? What kind of car do you have now? And any product has X users and potential users or repeat users. So I break all this down. So I thought, well, why not look at Target department stores? And a Target shopper is 42.5 years versus a Walmart shopper who is 46 years. The Target shopper makes a greater household income. 3/4 of Americans live within a short drive of a Target store. I pulled up some research and planning, marketing planning, that an account executive or a client would do. And that is that Target says, and I find this a little bit of inspirational, but we inspire a sense of joy and discovery in a way only Target can. So we can drive those special I got it at Target trips. I'm not sure I know anyone that ever went to Target and said, wow, I found it at Target. And then you can, in today's world, I mean, you can drive up, you get in-store pickup, and you can do same-day delivery with one of their partners. So that's just a slight thing of breaking those down. Now I want to see if I can do this. So in the last month, and as of yesterday, Fortnite ended up having a complaint, a lawsuit against Apple. And this is based on Apple generating 30% of the cost of anything that somebody that's using the app and wants to buy Fortnite. Apple has always taken 30%. And it goes back to when Steve Jobs started. And so the lawsuit is about revenue, money, and control. And this is a huge lawsuit, and it is involving everybody that is using an app that has to do with buying something. So I'm just going to play a little piece of this. But this, Brian and I know this goes back to 1984 and a Super Bowl spot. But this is the brand new one. And the day they launched the lawsuit is the day they launched this spot. Is that too loud?
We're not hearing it.
Ooh. And I have it. It's like loud in my speakers. God, I have it all on and everything.
Let me just see if there's any other.
I think what I'm doing, and I got this cranked up. Well, I think the easier answer would be to look at, this is Epic Games, so this is I'm sorry, it works for me, but we were testing it here.
You know what, Larry? That's one of the problems that I've had in multiple classes. Is there are settings that unfortunately not every computer defaults to that make videos difficult.
You know, Okay, this is driving me crazy because it's like as loud as it possibly could be in my headset. Bear with me. Yeah, see, it's not making sense to me on this.
So Larry, I'd say probably skip the video.
I am. I'm trying. I'm just trying to get rid of it myself. There we go. Oh, did I lose you guys? I think I may have now, right?
No,
Can you see
we
my
can hear you.
screen?
We can hear you.
But can you see my screen?
Yeah, we're still seeing your PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. So I'm seeing Ring Central, which is not what I want to see. Okay. Bear with me. Sorry. I once had a president of an advertising agency said they've never had a presentation that didn't have some type of technological problem. Oh, we'll just do it this way. All right. I'm not going to play this then.
So
if you've
Larry,
seen,
just one real quick thing. Angel mentioned this. At the end of your presentation, why don't you just why don't you just paste the links into the chat, and that way everybody will be able to look at these afterwards.
we can do that.
Okay.
And this one, I think it's just the first one. This one is, if you've seen it in the last week, it's Snickers and the guy is wearing underwear and he thinks it's a Zoom call, but it's his mother-in-law and father-in-law that are there in person. So Brian mentioned 87 countries, and my wife and I have been married for 42 years. We're going to hit 5 more countries. And I don't believe that you fly into an airport and you count a country. You have to be in there for 2 days, at least 2 days or a month, like in Morocco. But I ended up going to Swaziland and Eswatini for our 40th anniversary. And not everybody goes to Swaziland. And here's a clue and an insight.
Larry, let's just let that sink in again. You went where on your 40th anniversary?
Well, we went to South Africa, but we also went to Swaziland. South Africa.
Cool
and
anniversary.
Swaziland was worth doing, but I'll show you a few slides. So if you're the king and you're a monarch, you get to do things that other people don't do, and you may live far better than some of the people that are starving in the country. But the target or people should be tourists. We visited at customs, and they end up changing the name at that time. But it's really about citizens and businesses, and it shouldn't be about ego. But that means every single piece of paper and every single website and every different company had to change the name of it, and that's a huge expense.
So Larry, you're saying they changed the name of what?
The whole country.
The whole country rebranded itself.
Well, I think they did a terrible job of rebranding, but they rebranded or renamed it, which then caused a whole lot of problems. And I'll show you some of this. So the king of Swaziland felt that the people confused Swaziland with Switzerland. I have never met anybody that ever thought that Swaziland and Switzerland were confusing. But this is a king that also plays golf, and he has 3 different helpers. And when he hits a golf shot, one of those 3 runs out on the golf course, picks up the ball, and throws it ahead, so he gets a lower score. And we had some pretty interesting people on our trip talking to us that we met, and this was kind of a cultural exchange, so it's kind of fascinating. So could you find Swaziland on a map? It's in Africa, right? Not Europe. So there's Swaziland, and there's Switzerland. And to change it to Eswatini is not the easiest thing to do, and it's very expensive. So when we were at customs, I shot these boards, and if you see the one on the top left, everything is going to be okay. I actually think they did that on purpose. And so kind of a nightmare if you think about everything they have to do there. And then we kept asking questions about the king. So, and I read yesterday, it's the last absolute monarchy in Africa. That kind of explains a lot of stuff. So we're going to do a few slides on who's the target, prospects, potential customers, repeat customers, ex-customers. All of these are under people. So here's a great example. This is in San Diego, and it's a motherhood maternity outlet at an outlet mall. And if you can see, parking reserved for expectant mothers right in front. It's not easy to be pregnant. I'm reading a book that is about two different parts of it. And it's not easy being a mother, so they end up having reserved parking. That was just clever, and that doesn't cost you anything. It just needs working with them all. Or I have a real problem, and Brian has seen this before, that the before and afters are way too exaggerated. And in this case, I don't believe that woman ever wore those pants ever in her life. And I have many more examples, and this was from Groupon. I found this last week at a Bristol Farms, and there's hundreds of waters out there, but here's a company called Zen Water that is using recycled ocean plastic, and it doesn't seem like the smartest thing, but it does have this environmental feel to it. And then they discount it, and I just thought it was an interesting way of differentiating, another way of differentiating water, like vitamin water or all the different waters. I found this at a zoo, and you could say don't sit on or climb on the fence, but this seems to make a lot more sense, and it seems more fun telling people don't be stupid. Or this one, who's the real target if people are not supposed to be fishing from the bridge? Seems crazy. And then how do you do it? So if you do my last slide, this is humor. This is just authority. I found this in Morocco. To me, it's one of the weirdest slides in the history that I've ever seen. And I don't know anybody who really wants meat clown, but this is in Morocco. Does that seem appealing to anybody? If it does, raise your fingers up. Doesn't to me. Yeah. Okay. And then in Granville Island in Vancouver, it's an island that they end up appealing, and they were smart in how they did this messaging, that it's unhealthy and you consider it indirect animal cruelty rather than have a sign that says, don't feed the birds. I found this, and to this day, I'm not really sure I understand it, and somebody's being funny, but, and it has so many misspellings and everything, but it's just clever, I think. I know in October, we're a month, 3 weeks away, but I think that a pumpkin spice latte at Starbucks is a really good thing. I don't think that pumpkin spice spam sounds really good to me. So doesn't this kind of ruin those good feelings of you wanting to go to Starbucks for a pumpkin spice latte? I've found these in several different countries, and I just think they're interesting. If you're a restaurant or a bar, the soup of the day is whiskey. It's just a better idea than saying it's pea soup with specks of ham. Or our door is always open unless it's closed, then it's not open. Or you'll love and it's misspelled, what's in store, love what's in store, WHAT apostrophe S. I have a bunch of things that I've collected. You're not going to see that many that have spelling errors. I like this one. It's at a florist, and if you are a guy, I think this is the target market, and the people is a male, that if you really screwed up, then you need to buy a larger bouquet. And so they use some humor on this. I don't know if it works, but I think it's clever. So if you have really screwed up, you got to go to C or D. I want you to realize, I'm going to give you some career advice, but don't be afraid to share your ideas. I ended up seeing this Sharknado. I have actually seen all 6 Sharknadoes, but somebody in a meeting said, we need a film or a movie about a tornado full of sharks. Seems kind of odd, but then I found this yesterday that the 4-year franchise is worth $4.5 billion, and it was beating Disney Pixar. Who would have known that? And if I had a choice of a Pixar movie or Sharknado, I think I'd pick Pixar. And then this is from Canada. This has to do with McDonald's being sued. Their coffee was too hot. So it's just somebody that was making cups of coffee and just making fun of America. I found this one recently, and it was introduced in the American Music Awards. So a pretty expensive television spot. And this is that Subaru accent. And how many cup holders do they have? Now, I'm going to tell you that for between 5 and 10 years, BMW kept, the engineer said, no, nobody should have a cup holder in a BMW. Well, Subaru has 19. What the heck? Too many. And then here's another misspelling. But if you're buying smart water for $4 a bottle, it's not working. Well, and that's just somebody doing something fun, and just clever outside a bar or a restaurant. Then I thought I'd do an example that this is brand new, and this has to do with 96% of U.S. customers buy cereal every time they shop. And all of us are living at home more, and are we buying more cereal, whether today or 5 years ago or 10 years ago? But more than a third buy one box, and 1 in 5 buy 3 boxes every day. So I like teaching with things that are provocative. So I found these new cereals. I don't know if I really love the taste of coffee flavored cereals. I'd rather just have hot coffee, but caramel macchiato and mocha latte, maybe, maybe not. But then here's one, and somebody is having fun, I think, with breakfast, the cookbook. And this is Dash, and it has coffee and cocoa cereal. And then it's vanilla and Patum, and I didn't even know. Does anybody, if they raise their hand, has ever heard of Patum before? I never heard of it, and it's a plant that has a flavor to it. Well, what's worse on this is $12 a box for 9 ounces. That's not a lot of cereal. And then the graphics are kind of cute. And then we're coming up with October with maybe one of the oddest Halloweens that, Halloween is for both kids and for adults, and a lot of adults are doing it. But we've got Elvira, the Mistress of the Dark, with Tasty Treat, fun to eat. And then Brian and I were talking about this. Kisses cereal. Why don't we just eat Kisses? That we don't need to eat the cereal. And then I looked up what's the #1 best-selling cereal. Honey Nut Cheerios, that it's $481 million in sales, that millennials are more likely to have a bowl of cereal as a snack, and we end up having Generation Z or post-millennials that they are more inclined to eat cereal on the go. So, when you have your Subaru with 19 cup holders, you could just put cereal in each one of the cup holders. And then I thought, well, let's talk about looking at segmentation, looking at people, looking at promotion, looking at new product development. And we have the most sugary cereal, probably most unhealthy, and it can't even be sold around the globe. That 5 different countries will not allow Fruit Loops because of the dyes. And then I ended up thinking, well, how many people eat cereal? And this was before and after COVID, but a lot of people, 90% eat it as a snack. And then you break it down that some people eat it as a breakfast cereal, some people eat it at other times of the day, and some people go on a snack or eat cereal. They use it different ways. So cereal is not like it used to be. It's more of a snack. And then in that same survey, I ended up, this is a good idea, but it was poorly executed, that if you're going to do a presentation, if you're going to do research, you can ask people, are there any cereal flavors that you'd like to see? So in this survey, the one I presented 4 things back, they said, people wrote, how about bagel and bacon and egg cereal? That sounds gross. Or the avocado toast and biscuits and gravy. So those are 3 kind of odd things. But sometimes you can learn an awful lot, and somebody may have a really great idea. I don't think any of those are great. I love this one because it's clever, and that there is no such thing as free-range chicken flavor. They're not allowed, I think because of the FTC, to do this, but this was a few years ago that they put free-range chicken flavor as a promotional line at the top of Temptations. And our cat loves National Temptation. I'm going to do some slides on your career and your life, but ultimately, and the part of this presentation is going to college is not preparing you as a profession, but also for life. And when I've taught, I've always said, you know, I want to make you better on whatever you're doing. So let's get real and let's talk about branding and what we do in marketing and the 9Ps and that everything is connected. So, and Brian's going to help me with this because I have not done this on a Zoom one. I have presented this for probably 10 different ways over 10 years, but we've never done it with Zoom. But I'm going to give you 5 different items, and I want you to think about an image of the person who is buying these products, and there's 5 of them. So I'm going to show you, and I'm going to give you a car, electronic, a clothing, a food, and a furniture. And I want you to think about what that person looks like. And then I have a series of questions. I got to tell you, this works so much better in a classroom when you have, whether it's 10 or I taught many times, a class of 178.
So Larry is
So,
being very negative. I think it's going to work fine.
okay, that's cool.
He's going to talk about these. Then when he asks the questions, we just want you guys to type in the chat your answers, okay? And we'll just kind of go over them. Larry, you got it.
So we're going to do 3 examples. The first one is, I want you to think about this. This is the person who had a VW Beetle, and they traded it in for a Kia Forte. They have a Galaxy Note 20 Ultra 5G. For the clothing, they go to Ann Taylor. For the food, they have Nutrisystem, the diet system. And then for furniture, they go to Ethan Allen. So again, it's Volkswagen Beetle to a Kia Forte, a Galaxy Note 20, Ann Taylor, Nutrisystem, and Ethan Allen. So you kind of got that. So is that a male or a female?
Go ahead and write your answer now. Angel went so far as to say a 42-year-old woman. Most of them are saying female. Yep,
And
female across.
Would that person wear a mask?
Would that person? Oh, that's a great question. I'm seeing yes, yes, yes. A lot of yeses.
Are they in good shape or not?
We got a couple split decisions here. I'm seeing good, no, yes. A little undecided there.
Which again, this is just an exercise to kind of expand your brain. Did they buy clothing online in the last month?
Again, a mix of a couple different answers. Yeses and nos.
We'll do a couple more, and I'm going to vary each one of these. The next one is, are they good looking or not?
Ooh, I see no, I see no, I see meh, I see no, I see no. Subjective.
Are they a nice person or a jerk?
It's a Karen. I see jerk, I see Karen.
See, Karen, that's very clever. Whoever came up with that, pat yourself on the back. Is that Angel did that?
No, that was Louisa.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very good. Okay. You know what? That is very funny that okay. So let's do the next one. They have a 2016 Buick Casada. They have an iPad Mini 7.9. They shop at J. Crew. They go to Starbucks regularly, and they go to Living Spaces. So 2016 Buick, iPad Mini, J. Crew, Starbucks, and Living Spaces. So let's do male or female.
Split so far, a little bit more to male. No, it's about 50-50 now. Male, female.
All right. Do they wear a mask?
No.
Did they purchase clothes in the last week?
Yes. More yeses than nos. A couple nos.
Are they a coupon shopper? They go to the web for deals? Do they like Living Social and Groupon?
More no's than yes. One yes so far in that, mostly no's.
And I would guess if you ever, and one of the things I did in class, we'd ask if people went to Starbucks, 5 or 6 times a week. It's hard to be a coupon shopper if you're spending that kind of money. So is this person religious or secular?
So far, secular. They all say secular.
All right, we're going to do, I didn't do this for the first one. Will they vote for Trump or Biden?
One Biden, one Trump, two Trumps, three Trumps, four Trumps, five Trumps. The room thinks it's Trump.
Are they young or old?
Young.
Are they a nice person or a jerk?
A lot of jerks and one jack.
And I love that. That whoever's doing that, that's very creative. And then, would you want to party with them?
No, big
there's
no,
not a
no
chance.
ways.
No, I get you. All right, we're gonna do one more. You ready? A BMW 3 Series, an iPhone 11 Pro Max, Tom Ford is the clothing, Monster Energy is the food, and they go to IKEA. So BMW 3 Series, iPhone 11, Tom Ford, Monster Energy, and IKEA. Male or female?
Male.
See, you're
Male,
getting
definitely.
That. Yeah. Do they wear a mask? I'm going to guess it's mixed.
A lot of no's.
Yeah.
One yes.
Did they watch sports yesterday?
More yeses than no's, but a little mixed.
Are they good looking or not?
I'm seeing not. No, not. No.
Are they a coupon shopper?
No.
Yeah, I would say that true. Trump or Biden? This will be interesting.
A little more for Trump. Yeah, Trump.
Wow.
A couple saying Biden.
A nice person or a jerk?
Yeah, it's a jerk.
Yeah, I would say when you have 3 Monster Energy drinks in a day, that doesn't make trend well. Do you want to party with them?
A few more yeses. Maybe for a night.
Okay.
Some said never.
So I have to say to Brian that this worked, and I think the way it works is because you're managing that. Because when I've seen many Zoom presentations, it's just hard for the speaker to kind of quantify things, and it slows it down. So thank you.
I got a great class. These guys are on it. I'm gonna call Kat out because I thought it was very astute when you asked if he was good looking or not, and I think her answer was no, but he thinks so. That's going deep into targeting people.
I think that's even better. Oh, I
think we just lost Larry.
No, you didn't. No, I just think that this class,
sorry, you guys, he fell asleep.
Thing just adds to this thing. Okay, so we're going to move on. So and thank you for this. So why did we do this? Well, we know a lot about people by the brands that they buy. I only gave you 5 products, and you answered a whole series of questions, making human connections on why branding and differentiation in the 90s work. And all of this is without any research. It's from your own observation. So why do you do branding? It's so that you can identify a product. You can go into a store, and it comes from Colorado and the branding of cattle. And branding affects purchasing and new product development and distribution and adding new products into retail. So And again, you want to look at lowering your marketing and promotional costs. You want to look at distribution, and you want to have retailers carry additional products in your product mix. So I did a survey, or I reviewed a survey that banks, motor oil, and 20 other categories, nearly a third of all categories examined, did not have any differentiated brands. The products and services were known by name, but not known for anything in particular. And very similar to, you don't want a third of your products to have no differentiation. You want to look at who is your potential customer and what is going to make them put the product into the shopping cart. So you look at, and you can charge higher prices for branded products that have differentiation. You can add new products, and you have a defense against competitors that are looking for price reductions, and that's their marketing tool. I'm going to do a confuse on advertising, that there's good and bad advertising. And again, that's only one of the 8 different components under promotion. But advertising is a good thing, but it does have downsides, and it can be informative, it can be entertaining, and it can be life saving when you're looking at drugs or what's called direct to consumer DTC ads. But it also can be misleading, it can have privacy issues, it can be intrusive, and it can be a hazard to your health. And I ended up talking about the sugary cereals or alcohol or snacks or sugar or soft drinks or fast food ads. So just looking at that, but we're going to do a few more slides here. So I'm going to go back to this branding and differentiation. Though I was in a deposition on the plaintiff's side, and the attorney said to me, "Isn't all bar soap the same?" And he could have taken any marketing class, including Brian. And I said, "No." And he had this weird look on his face. And he says, "Well, why do you say that?" And I came back with, well, 2 different retail stores would have different soap. 99-cent store has different soap. Lava has pumice. You have Irish Spring. You have Crest. You have Tom's. You have Dial. You have Neutrogena. And to do differentiation, Lava is for tough guys that are working in heavy duty professions, maybe oil, maybe automotive, but it literally has a rock pumice in it to get the grime off your hands. Dial works longer. Dove is smoother and for women, so the differentiation is women. And Zest opens your eyes. I don't know what that means. Really, you want soap that you can open your eyes. And then Neutrogena is pure, simple, and clean. So then I said, well, if they're higher price, they're differentiated. So I gave you some examples that if you're Yardley and you're lavender and rosemary, you can charge more. And then I like this slide because I have no idea what clean as a whistle means. That's their line, but what the heck that means, I kind of understand what it is. So when you want to look at, and we did that exercise of brands, you want to pick the right target market, which under my 9 Ps, and remember there are 2 sources, download it for free. You want to differentiate your product. You want to pick the right distribution channels. You want to pick the right pricing, could be higher, could be low. And then we're going to do kind of differentiate and show you the different elements or options or components under my word promotion. And advertising is, I don't believe it's the number 1 on the list. I actually think it's personal selling or your sales force. But you also have events and experiences or direct marketing or interactive with the web. So there are 2 things that I want to be helpful here, that you can go to that 9 Ps or my website, but there are 2 things. I've talked to you about the 9 Ps, but I also have, I think it's 31 pages for 9 Ps and 24, I believe, for finding and landing a job. And I've worked on it mostly for, the beginning was for MBAs at USC and CSUN and at Pepperdine. But if you go to my page on articles and articles and resources, that you can find those. And so I added those big old arrows to show you where they are. And there's some other things there. But again, I'm not trying to sell you this because they don't cost anything. So I want to do some slides. Pecani sauce, this is not a good thing for kids. I found this in our neighborhood, that the number 1 problem with any neighborhood is people not picking up after their dog. So somebody said, well, why don't I do a more clever idea? And so they ended up saying downward dog position. Pretty smart of somebody. Then I do a whole presentation, but I'm only do a few slides. But marketing and advertising are not interchangeable words. And I present this mostly at the law schools and the MBA program. But again, on this, I've shown you this, but promotion has 8 different elements. That advertising is just one of those, and those are the other 9 P's there. And here's the helpful hint that these are not advertising. Posters are not advertising because they're not paid media. Retail merchandising is not advertising. Your sales force is not advertising. Store location or shelf location is not. PR releases are not advertising. I love sampling in stores, and especially in the holidays, because you can sell a lot of product in a store by having people sample it. Costco, and if any of you haven't been to a Costco, there was a friend of mine that we would go once a month and stay there for 2 hours just watching what people bought, and we really got a feeling of the sampling in stores. You have product names and packaging and new product development. None of those are advertising. So using and incorporating the 9 Ps, I'm going to give you some more examples. This is a simple one. This is Ben & Jerry's. Ben & Jerry's, if you go to their factory tour in Vermont, you get a free ice cream cone and you get a sales job. And Ben & Jerry's is one of the best companies having to do with passion and that they are socially responsible. And I like that. But they have some fun with it, because when developing new product development, they have flavors that didn't sell. So I was able to take this picture of 5 guys, don't know really why they're 5 guys in the graveyard, and these are flavors that somebody developed, said, wow, this is really great, and it just didn't sell. So I'm going to get in. This is pretty strategic, and it's very brand new, and I've followed this now for 2 years, and Facebook is in the news every single day. But Facebook's musical chairs and rotating CMO, and that's a chief marketing officer. So 2 years ago, a guy named Lucio, or Antonio Lucio, was hired, and they hired him away from HP as their new CMO. In the press release and in presenting him to the company, they saw, and this is why I picked this up, nobody is presented as has an extraordinary reputation in the industry as a leader, a marketer, an operator, a wise, graciously, and deeply principled human being. And this was presented by one of the top 6 people, a guy named Chris Cox, who was leaving, and he just returned last month to Facebook. And he's worth a lot of money, but he was introducing Antonio. And I ended up thinking, well, this is not the easiest job. One thing that Antonio said is, he says, we need to, the first couple of days, we need to tell the story outside what we know is true inside. His target really was his boss and probably Zuckerberg and other employees. But what Facebook has are trust issues, diversity issues, privacy issues, product issues, fake news issues, advertising issues. They're making a ton of money, but they are in the news for not always the best thing. And part of his job was to improve our products and services. These are all his words. And then I ended up going, oh, what did he say at that time? And then what did he say last 2 weeks ago? And he said, well, I need to work on the brand, and I need to unify all the sub brands, including Instagram and all of these. And I'm thinking, well, that's like the most difficult job ever. And then I looked up how much was he paid. Without stock options, I believe he was being paid $280,000. And when he left 2 weeks ago, he said, I came in with my eyes wide open. I knew that this was challenging. I know that we have advertising and voting issues. We have misinformation concerns, and we have metrics for advertisers, of which they have been sued for that. So I followed this, and this is about as contemporary as I possibly can. Then I ended up saying, well, what's the length of time that a chief marketing officer at all companies? And it's 23.6 months to 27.5 in the last 16 years. But if you're a chief executive or chief executive officer, it's 88.4 months or 7.4, or a chief financial officer is 63 months. Huge difference with these, that the chief marketing officer is turned over quicker. then I presented this a little bit, but on our 40th anniversary, my wife and I said, well, let's go to the stand. I don't know that. We only know a few people that have ever been to the stand, but Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan are are really fascinating. And I would say that we would agree that this was one of our weirder trips. And when we were in the Grand Bazaar, one of the shop owners said, am I on your shopping list? I mean, they were just trying anything. And I kept track of probably about 50 different lines that these shop owners would do. Or one said, let me sell you something you don't need. And I'd take it and write these down. It was kind of fun to do that. And then here's where Brian has seen this presentation before. So I'm in Uzbekistan and we're on a van with 20 other people. And somebody says, well, 90% of the cars, it's a national issue that they think they take pride in it. So all the cars you pay $500 to $1,000 more, and it's a white car. And so here's on the right here is the dealership with all white cars. And then 51% are Chevys. So if you're going to rob a bank, it's going to be a Chevy and a white car. Not that you're going to do this. Then they have some branding issues and trademark issues. So Lola Cola, and I would, if I was in class and we didn't have COVID-19, I would be showing you this, the bottles, which are right above me here. But Lola Cola, and this was $5 for 99 cents. So 20 cents a piece. And when I bought it, a bunch of people, not on our tour, but the other people and even the shop owner said, I can't sell you that. You can't drink that because it may have had bad chemicals in it. But a cleanser called Barf seems a bit much. And then a Stripe. All of these I actually have above me. So I love going into these stores just to find things that I think are unusual to present. And then here's more. This is even simpler. That Snickers, but in the same area, they had Snickers and they had Snickers and they had Snikers, whatever those are. And the one on the left, if you see that there are different names and they were mixing them. If you are the Mars Candy Company, you don't like this at all. And I did buy some of these, and the off-brand ones, the ones that they were trademark issues, did not taste as good. I probably shouldn't have eaten those either. So I'm going to wrap up with some other insights and common sense or street sense. Last Valentine's Day, I pulled this out, and this has to do with Snickers and related. But I don't see how Halloween and Valentine's Day is a romantic holiday, and I don't get the thing on the left. And then I'll show you the different things with Snickers on the right. But I think this headline is just they're just trying too hard. To help you, here's a sign that I did, and it says, real estate investor looking for a trainee for $240,000 a year or $20,000 a month. I do a presentation, it's about an hour, on street sense versus common sense. And this thing doesn't make sense. Nobody's going to pay a trainee that kind of money. Then these are helpful things for you. Every day you place a brick in the tower of your brand and reputation. And I talk about all the team projects that you do if this was a normal semester. And I know you are, but it's not a normal school year. But everything you do, you are building your reputation. You, every day, big or small, you are adding or subtracting from your brand or tower. That advertising, marketing, media are all people business, and people don't forget how they were treated, and you need to be nice on the way up because on the way down, people may not like you. And then I ended up watching 90 Day Fiancé, and I thought, wow, I can add this to this presentation. So they're asking one of the fiancés a simple question: give me 3 words to describe yourself. And the guy could not do a good job on that, and that seemed to be tough. So then in my how to find and land a job in that presentation that you can download, so some of the key questions that you should have these and interview yourself and have other people interview, but have answers to this. So tell me about yourself, or why should we hire you? Or what do you bring to the table or the party? Or tell me a story on a topic you care about. All of these you should rehearse for hours so that you can answer it, because these are pretty typical questions and people are not good at interviewing. So a couple of years ago, I found that in the merger of AOL and Yahoo, the CEO said, "What would other people say about you?" So it's another variation of that same thing, and each one of those should be. You should look at that. So I believe you, and I'll have time for questions if you want. But I think it's important thing is to never stop questioning, and this is from Albert Einstein. I think you should be a problem solver and prepare and have alternatives. Don't be a problem maker or a problem creator. And it really is about the details. Don't care who solves a problem, have solutions, get the problems fixed. It's not about you and you get credit. It is about working with other people. Probably the number one thing is networking, I believe, and working with other people. So I'll give you, Brian kind of mentioned something that reminded me of this. So you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be taken out of context and put on Twitter, and then it's a whole thing. So things are taken out of context in interviews and in life. Or according to your LinkedIn profile, you're focused and disciplined achiever, but according to Facebook, you love Jack Daniels and are pretty comfortable with your body. Or you're not, you can't always be right, but here's just a perfect example that people look at two things differently. It's a 6 or a 9. I did this today about an hour ago. I found this, and it's make the most of yourself, for that is all there is of you. And this goes back to the 1800s. So I appreciate that Brian asked me. I'm here for you. You can download those things, and I'm here to support. And if there's Brian and you, and if there's any questions.
Larry, why don't you stop sharing this just so we can bring everybody's video up?
That's really helpful.
Anybody have any questions for Larry? Angel, go ahead.
Angel, you're muted.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks for the presentation. It was really good. So from like, I guess if I could try to like wrap my head around the entire presentation, is you were saying that we should focus on people as like the primary factor for like when we're trying to set up a brand. Yeah, target.
Well, I think in new product development, but one of the things that is not part of the 4 Ps is people and the customer. So if you look at solving problems of a product that is not in the marketplace, then I think that's a really key component. And then the enthusiasm, like the passion part of the presentation, the enthusiasm that people have for a product is another thing that you want to look at and you want to present better. But my goal, it was just to sit in a meeting that people are just talking at you, and I just divided it up and was able to answer their question. And the other 2 consultants went, I didn't take any notes. And so they kind of rambled, and I didn't ramble. And so I've been doing that ever since that. That was in the middle before any of you were born. No, it's actually, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for asking.
Other questions? So Larry, I've got a question. When I came to Gray Advertising in 1981, by 1982, Gray was advocating a term that was called brand character. And so Gray was a company that really embraced the concept of branding, and that a brand carries more with it than just a logo, just a color scheme, that there's a lot. And I liken it to, I think it's very parallel to the Reese and Trout book, Positioning, and how they said what's important in positioning is not just what you say the positioning is, but what the people think it is. And I think that's true of a brand. It's not that important what you say it is, it's more important what they think it is. When did you first see branding really sort of come to the forefront? Was that something spoken of when you were getting your master's? Or
I think branding has been here for almost forever. I think some of the original products of how in the ancient days, or even going to the wild, wild west, how somebody designed a poster to sell something.
But when
it's,
did it come to the forefront of marketing and advertising?
there are two things I think about. In 1955 was the first time the word marketing was ever used in an annual report, and that was General Electric or GE. But I think that this Jerome McCarthy came up and it would be, and I had the original book behind me, that branding has been around and it's just been more and more defined, and it's easier to do marketing research now. I love brand character. I used it in a Facebook post the other day. I didn't say gray advertising brand character, but it was really a good item, a good way of summing up things. But I believe, those two slides, I believe all of you are branding yourself every single day. And I got to tell you, it is harder to meet other people, especially with COVID-19. But the more you can network, the more you can work with other people, the better off you are. And I think, probably 3 jobs I have were based on somebody recommending me, saying you could work on that job. And it was because I knew somebody. And I've always been I watch a lot of Zoom presentations even now that I probably do 1 a day, but I constantly think I'm learning every single day. And branding is something you learn all the time. I literally, Brian knows that I have thousands of slides, but I end up dumping a bunch of them because they're just not as current. That Facebook stuff, that's a month old. And Facebook is really making a ton of money, but they said they're only going to stop advertising a week before the election. And I ended up posting it on our 2 guys on marketing thing saying, well, how about a month? And then how about you don't do it any time for the rest of the political season? Facebook's branding himself every day. Google brands himself every day. And Fortnite, that is, I don't think we should, I think you should pull it up when I'm not here because it'll be easier. But that's a pretty good spot. And if you, during the semester, show them the 1984 spot that Apple did, and then this new one, it's pretty clever that they knew and they worked with their attorneys that the day they filed the lawsuit, they produced a spot that is very well done and not an inexpensive spot. But they also, the story is behind it that they have an awful lot of production services. So it took them maybe a couple of weeks to do something that could take months for somebody else.
Any other questions for Larry? Larry, I've got one more that I want to ask, and I want to ask on behalf of our students. So you and I discussed this a couple semesters ago. I think one of the things that I like about the 9 Ps is I think it gives you a very good way of analyzing the marketing efforts, the branding of a product or a service. So the students haven't really started on this yet, but it's going to be starting pretty soon and for the rest of the semester. They're actually going to create a brand. They're going to create a brand from scratch. And I'm not going to put too many restrictions on the brand, but when you think about creating a brand from scratch, naming, logo, product, the marketing that'll be behind that, what are some of the things that hit you in terms of what you have to do when you create a brand from scratch?
Well, I'm going to give them probably the easiest answer is that, and how they're going to be groups of 2 or 3 by themselves. Oh,
yeah.
Then I just go to a grocery store and I'd either go to Costco or a grocery store or both. And I would hang around there, but look at a category that you're interested in and take a photograph and look at something that is missing there. You could literally come up with $1 million idea based on Brian's idea. And I got to tell you, it's not the easiest thing to do with a brand, but could you come up with another video game? Could you come up with another soap? 99-cent store wouldn't be a bad idea. If you want to brand yourself, 99-cent store is based on price alone. And there, I believe that the average product they are buying is around 24 cents, and then they're selling it for 99. But and if you're into cars, go to an auto supply store like a Pep Boys. But figure out something. and then do a whole bunch of research. But I would say this, you know, come up with 3 or 4 ideas and then sleep on it and then say, okay, I'm going to do this one. And then you can find an awful lot of stuff. You know, when I was looking at, you know, it's so easy to do research now with the web and just say, I need this. But as Brian and I both know, we're probably better at knowing what the questions to ask only because we're more experienced.
So you would say that finding the hole in the market that you can fill would be a good way of approaching that.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking about, look at Starbucks actually has a location on the north side of the street and the south side of the street, or the east and the west. And it's because of traffic patterns. But that's a brand that they could do that. You rarely ever see that. You may even want to look at all of the discussion we're having on how I think we're going to go through a huge transformation of businesses. And as simple as, I don't know if I talked to a bunch of people today, that we're never going to shake hands like we used to. And that was a big deal. You'd walk into a client meeting and shake their hand and did it in a personal way. And you do it with warmth and they like you better. There are some people that just like other people. And then other times, I'll tell you, this is kind of crazy, but there is a person who 15 years ago ended up shaking my hand. And you know how you take your finger and rub the inside of your finger? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's a joke on people. I need the nod or anything, so you know what I'm talking about. That's 15 years ago, and I still find the guy annoying. It's not appropriate to do that, you know, and he was an advertising guy and he was a headhunter. You know, we are all walking brands ourselves. So, you know, in school, campuses are brands.
Any other questions for Larry? And if not, Larry, we went an hour and 15. I think that's just about perfect. Thank you so very much. Thanks for coming
I
and
love
sharing
this.
your thoughts
Thanks
with
for
us.
inviting me.
And Larry, I will talk to you on the phone because I've got you coming up for another class.
Yep.
Before too long, so I'll talk to you shortly.
So thank you. Enjoy the class and enjoy your evening and enjoy one of the most interesting semesters ever. Look at it as interesting, even though it's difficult. Bye.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
So you guys, listen, it's 8:15. We do have a few other things that we need to get to. If it's okay with you, let's take a break right now. Give everybody a few minutes, use the restroom, get something to eat, check your email, whatever it is that you need to do. Let me close out my full screen here on the other monitor. Look at the time. It says 8:16 on my clock. Let's start back in about 9 minutes. That'll be 8:25 on my clock, whatever 9 minutes means for you. So we'll meet back. We'll get going on that. And we're gonna move through chapters 4 and 5 pretty quickly. I'm gonna give you the highlights that I think are the most important. Then I'm gonna give you the assignment, your homework assignment for this next week. And again, you'll be able to use this homework assignment as part of your research project that is due in 2 weeks. So this is one of those where I'm kind of giving you the gift. I'm giving you a homework assignment that's gonna help you with that paper. So we'll be back in about 9 minutes, okay? Okay, we're going to get started again pretty quickly. If you all want
Hey,
to.
Brian.
Yeah.
I just had a question about the Moodle. I saw that it was due today at 7 a.m. I don't know if that was a mistake on your part or if I was missing the due time, I guess.
No, it shouldn't have been. It's always going to be due at class time the next week. So if I did
Okay.
that, I must have pulled down the wrong time on the menu on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll always be that. I will never purposefully do a weird time. So if it's a weird time, you can call me up and say, Brian, did you really mean to do a weird time? I'm actually, for my class in Texas, since it's 2 hours away, I start at 8 in the morning. So I actually, for that class, I told everybody everything is due at midnight the night before, just so I can at least see if stuff is coming in. Excuse me. I'm going to pull up a couple PowerPoints for us tonight, and these won't be long PowerPoints on this. Okay, there we go. So, okay, so what'd you guys think of Larry? Somebody volunteer a comment.
He talks really fast.
He talks really fast. I've tried 1,000 times to slow him down. I sometimes think I talk fast, and it's nowhere near as fast, I think, as Larry. I often think that if we were to put our ears very close to his head, like it's like shooting a bullet inside a steel room. You're just going to hear that bullet going bing, 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 hitting 15 different things. And that's how his brain works. But he is very bright. I've worked with him, and he's very bright, and very little gets past him. He is so experienced. He knows where to look, where there's issues, where there's problems. He's helped turn around a lot of companies and brands, and he, because he is so knowledgeable and he can think in very technical terms, that's why he gets asked to be an expert witness in court cases. So he's worked on many multi-million-dollar lawsuits where two companies are arguing over a trademark or a brand or advertising, or more often it's two partners of a company that might want to split up, and they've gone to court to see who will own the brand. There's a guy in advertising that refers him a lot of business, and he and that guy was going to be an expert witness on one side, and the other side asked Larry to be an expert witness, and Larry didn't want to go up against him. He didn't want to fight in court against the guy who was going to potentially give him a lot of business. So he decided not to do that. Through sheer coincidence, one of the 5 law firms that was defending themselves, they knew my wife very well, and they called her and said, is there any chance Brian could be an expert witness for us? And so I became an expert witness, and it ended up filling in where Larry was supposed to be, but didn't end up doing. And it was quite an eye-opener for me. I'll just tell you real quick while the last people are coming into the room. It was a case, I mentioned this actually, I think last semester, but a case where there's a company, it's a family, and they buy or lease properties, typically in Hollywood, West LA, all the way down to Venice. But if you've driven on Highland or Sunset or Hollywood Boulevard, and you've come across what looks like either a deserted building or a building under construction, and you see they put sort of barriers and a wall out in front, and then they put movie posters or concert posters or album posters on there. This is a family that all they do is buy or rent properties, put up they go get a construction permit, they put up a construction wall, and then they lease it like billboards. And one of their properties that they do this on is it's either Sunset and Highland or Sunset and La Brea. It's one of the big intersections. And the advertising on that address goes for $150,000 a month. But because it's Sunset, you know, the studios want it, the networks want it, the record labels want it. And so what happened was there was a church, there was a drug company, there were a total of 13 companies that they found posters on their walls that had not been paid for. And the owners of that family business got so angry that they turned around and said, we're going to sue every one of those companies. Well, 5 or 7 of those companies you couldn't even find. You know, they were fly by night. It was like a punk rock band and nobody knew who they were. So they weren't going to get anything from that. Ironically, one of the organizations was a church, and it's a church that I happen to go to in Hollywood. So I was very familiar with it. One of them was an AIDS drug, and that drug company didn't put the signs up, but one of their distributors did. And they were putting it up as a public service, like this is a new AIDS drug that's available. And so I had to go around to all the locations. I had to take pictures of everything. Then I had to estimate what costs would be on that. And I was actually quite pleased because I did a lot of work. I wrote a very extensive report. And the night that before I was to go to the deposition the next day, we were going to be in court in 1 week. I had about 3 weeks to prepare everything. And the night before, I got a call at 10 o'clock at night from one of the attorneys on the defense side. And they said, Brian, the other side has seen your report. And they've decided that they want to settle with us. They'll drop the lawsuit if we offer to pay them a small amount of money. And so they settled. And I was very happy that it wasn't what I did, but what I did helped the case get settled. And Larry works on those every day. And in my case, it was, you know, how do you take a poster on a wall and equate that to a billboard price? So I created mathematic formulas and I created traffic patterns to see what it was. Larry does that all the time. He's a really bright guy on that. But, you know, I'm hoping more than anything else, you kind of got a little feel for marketing around the world. You got a feel for some of the brands, what kind of works, what doesn't. I will tell you that 9 Ps really works. If you look up online and you look at 5 Ps or 6 Ps or 8 Ps or 27 Ps of marketing, you'll find a whole bunch of different ones. And I've put them all to the test. His really works well. And I would suggest to you, when you get a job, a freelance job, or you get a full-time job and you're working for somebody and you want to do sort of an analysis of their marketing, run it through Larry's 9 Ps, look at the people, look at the pricing, look at the targeting, just go through his list, and it will be a very well-structured marketing analysis. I think it's a very good tool for you guys. And he's also a really nice guy. If you were to have any questions for him, or you're looking for a job in the next few months or 6 months or whatever, and you feel like Larry might be able to, first of all, Larry knows everybody in Los Angeles, or lots of people anyway. He'll take your call. He'll respond to your emails. He's pretty giving in that. So anybody have any questions on anything else before we sort of jump into chapters 4 and 5? If you don't, I'm going to jump right in. We're going to get going on this, and we'll try to get out of here before it's too late. And I'll free you guys up so you can work on your homework. So let me share this right now. Sorry, let me get the screen kind of squared away. Okay, can you guys see the slide that says brand elements? So chapter 4 really goes into this idea of brand elements. I sort of refer to it as the stuff of brands. what the textbook calls brand elements. Do remember that I will post these PowerPoints for you guys, so you don't have to worry about getting every single thing. You're more than welcome to if you want to, but I will be posting these so you'll have access to them. So what are brand elements? Well, the book definition says brand elements are also sort of brand identities. But their technical definition is trademarkable devices that serve to identify or differentiate a brand. Now, the textbook says trademarkable. I kind of don't agree with that. Not everything is trademarkable. It'd be nice if it is. I don't see that as a requirement, but just know this is the textbook example. I think it's a pretty good definition of this, but what they're saying is brand elements are things that help us identify that that's related to that brand. That's what makes that brand different. Let's look at a few of those specifics. And I'm going to tell you, your homework tonight is going to be on this chapter. So the textbook identifies some common brand elements. And here's the laundry list. And there are other things, but these are kind of the big ones. A brand name is a brand element. The URL, the website address, is a brand element. The logo is a brand element. Symbols used by the company are brand elements. Characters used by the company are brand elements. Spokespeople, slogans, jingles, packaging, signage, all of that relates to brand elements. They're all things that have to be wrapped and intertwined with the brand. If a brand name was one thing and logos looks very different and symbols look very different and spokespeople look very different, it wouldn't jive. Brand elements need to be integrated. We're going to talk more about that in just a moment. But I just pulled up this little piece. I just did a quick search for famous brands. And this was just a little piece of art that happened to come up. And if you look at it, there's probably not many brands on here that you guys don't know. I'm not even sure if there's one that you guys wouldn't be familiar with. And it doesn't mean you have to be a customer of theirs. It doesn't mean you have to like them. But the chances are you guys all know what Twitter is. You all know what Coca-Cola is, what McDonald's is. And the chances are, you know, if I had you close your eyes and I asked you what color Yahoo was, you might be able to tell me it's purple. You might not. But you'd probably remember the Yahoo words, and it's kind of funny looking. You might remember that there's an exclamation point after it. And even if you didn't remember those, if I put 3 different ones in front of you, I can almost guarantee that most of you could go right to the one that is their logo. If you look on this page, you'll see some very simple logos. LinkedIn is a very simple logo, except that they've got that blue box on the end, and that makes it very distinct. Apple, we see that one. Nikon, very simple letters, but they've used that same name and logo for a long time. Adidas, very recognizable by the 3 stripes. CNN has become recognizable over the last 30, 40 years by just using 3 letters in a very interesting type style. So these are some of the ways that we're kind of seeing these brands come to life through some of these elements. In this case, these are mostly letters, logos, symbols that are being used. So those are some of the elements, but let's look at a few other elements. The textbook identified characters. Well, I have a couple characters here. We have Mickey Mouse, which of course is a character from Disney. Mickey Mouse was originally a character in a film, in a movie, Steamboat Willie. He was called Steamboat Willie before he was called Mickey Mouse. But that character was so popular, it became a symbol for the entire Disney brand. And of course, the rest is history. Now, 50, 60, 70 years later, if we see Mickey Mouse, we instantly think Disney. If you see Mickey Mouse in a cruise ship, you go, oh, Disney Cruises. If you see Mickey Mouse and the Magic Kingdom, you go, oh, that's either Disneyland or Disney World. And it's become symbolic. Now, a different way you can come at the characters is our M&M guys. Now, to me, what's interesting about that is they actually took their product and made their product into a character. Now, we might ask ourselves the question, we're not going to go too deep into this, but this is just one of those that I wanted to kind of throw out there. Why would M&M want to make their products into characters. Can somebody offer up a thought as to maybe why? Why would you turn your product into a character?
Maybe
I
it's
mean,
just targeted towards children.
so tell me why that would matter.
Because I feel like as a kid, M&Ms was kind of like what I looked forward to. Like when we went to the grocery store and you were in the checkout aisle, you'd see like the little tubes of like the mini M&Ms, and like that's what I'd always want. And then you'd see the M&M, like the backpack with the legs and the arms, and it created like this linkage that you could use,
Yeah.
kind of.
So put it in super simplistic terms. What did seeing those little M&M characters, what are just a couple words that pop into your mind?
Childish.
Yeah, and when you were a kid and you saw those, when you were at the checkout stand maybe with mom and you saw little M&M characters, what did you think? What are words that popped into your mind?
I don't know, maybe friendly.
Probably well, certainly if they're smiling and if they're maybe a little funny, friendly might be it. Another word that I sort of think of is fun, right? They just kind of made M&Ms more than just a hard shell candy with a little bit of chocolate inside a bag. I mean, that's basically what M&Ms are. But they gave it some personality, they gave it character. And if you think about it, M&Ms have become one of those brands that I know people that will not eat generic M&M type products, like little candy coated chocolates that don't have an M&M on it. They won't eat them, even though it's probably the same chocolate, it's probably the same hard candy, but they're like, no, I only eat M&Ms. And of course, we know there's a lot of us that we only eat certain color M&Ms. By having the characters, I think they've made it maybe funny. They've made it interesting. They've made it friendly. Another word that we might say is they've made it potentially accessible. They've made it accessible to us. They've made it accessible to maybe some target audiences that wouldn't otherwise have gotten to it. Now, there's also a downside to this in advertising. If we were talking about ethics in advertising, I would also talk about Joe Camel cigarettes, and the use of a character, which they actually got sued for because they realized cigarette companies too were trying to target kids to get them to like the brand at an early age, hoping they would buy it at another age. But if we talk about some of those other brand elements, well, we have spokespeople, right? Here's Jared from Subway. Jared was just a dude. I mean, he was just a guy who had some extra weight on him, and he ate Subway turkey sandwiches, and he lost a lot of weight, and he became a celebrity and a spokesperson because of it.
Wasn't he?
Go ahead.
Wasn't he also convicted as a child molester?
He was. He was. Well, I should amend that. I'm not sure that he was convicted of it. He was certainly accused of it, and he no longer is that spokesperson. But I like it because he's not Michael Jordan. He's not, Tiger Woods. He's not Tom Brady. He's not somebody we know from sports. He's just a guy who became a spokesperson. And the company at the time used him because he was representative of trying to achieve their goal of making the sub sandwiches sound healthier. Not that they were just big, drippy, greasy sub sandwiches, but they were actually healthy. Angel, you got a question?
Well, no, I was going to say, I think, isn't that what like insurance companies are trying to do right now with the Progressive lady and the State Farm people?
Yeah. Now, yes, they are. It's slightly different, but you're on the right path. In the case of Subway, as I just mentioned, sub sandwiches didn't always have the best reputation in terms of health. I mean, if you like a good sub sandwich, the drippier and the greasier, the better for a lot of people. But Subway was trying to do this sort of fresh, natural alternative. You get to make your own sandwich. You get to make it the way you want. In the case of insurance companies, and I've done work for insurance companies, I've done ad campaigns and marketing campaigns for insurance companies. Here's one of the difficulties. I refer to marketing insurance companies the way I refer to marketing dentist offices. Nobody wants to go to the dentist. Nobody wants to buy insurance. You know, we don't go to Facebook and go, you know, today I really want to follow a dentist. I want to see what cool posts a dentist has. You just don't do that. You don't go to an insurance company and go, you know, I want to see their Instagram account because I really want to, you know more about policies. That's not what we do. So what do? You find a way of trying to personalize it. And in the case of Progressive, they've now invested in Flow for more than a decade, which, by the way, I heard it was actually earlier this year. Forgot what the amount was, but she's paid like $2.5 million a year now just to be Flow. Like, she's not only made a living, she's made a great living becoming the spokesperson. What is State Farm? Can anybody tell me what the State Farm campaigns are right now?
Like a good neighbor.
So that's been their campaign theme for a long time.
Peyton Manning?
No, that's not kind of the popular one I'm seeing.
First of all,
If I say the words, it'll probably come to you. Jake from State Farm. Do you guys know those commercials? Who are you talking to at 4 a.m? Well, it's Jake from State Farm. Oh, Jake from State Farm. And of course, the wife rips away the phone and she says, oh, hi, Jake from State Farm. You know, what are you wearing? And he's like, khakis. And then, of course, he turns to somebody else and say, do they ask you what you're wearing? And the guy goes, yeah, sometimes. I mean, I'm not even a State Farm customer, and I can recite you half that commercial. I know I'm in the target audience for that. But that's a case where, yes, they've transcended just being an insurance company, and now they're kind of a funny company. Who is the spokesperson for Geico? Can anybody tell me?
The Geico.
What's that?
The Geico.
Who's Geico?
The lizard.
Yeah, the gecko.
Gecko, yeah.
Yeah, the Geico gecko. Right? So each one of those companies has found sort of a different way of doing it. And then Allstate can't really get themselves to be very funny, so they're a little bit funny. And right now their campaigns are, they've got the actor, and it's something about, you know, bundle and save up to 40% or something like that. And it's not really funny, but it's a little bit funny. But look at a couple other things on this page. So other things can be manifested that relate to a brand. In the case of McDonald's, that M or that sign actually has become synonymous with the brand. And I didn't put the picture up here, but the original McDonald's restaurants actually had 2 golden arches on the outside of the building, and there was no inside that people went into other than employees. You actually stood in a line outside. But those golden arches became very recognizable. So when they went to a more traditional store design, they began using the McDonald's golden arches that we see here. So that sign has actually become a part of the brand. So a character is a brand element. A spokesperson is a brand element. Look at the Pringles packaging. What did Pringles do? They basically said, well, we're going to take potatoes, we're going to chop them up, and we're going to form them in the shape of potato chips. And I have a feeling at a lot of meetings, people would have said, that's the most disgusting thing I've heard in a long time. I don't want formed, I want like real potato chips. But they found out they could make these very inexpensively. They could form them. But one of the ways they made it sort of cool was they created this entirely new way to package them. Every chip was shaped the same so they could stack them very efficiently and put them inside a tube. Their packaging has become a part of their brand. And then likewise, if we did Kit Kat, and I didn't link it, and I should have, but can anybody sing a few words from the Kit Kat jingle? Can you, if you don't want to sing, can you just tell me the words to it? Anyone? Louisa, you know it. I know you know it. Oh, absolutely, you know it.
I don't even eat Kit Kats.
Oh, but you have to know the jingle.
Don't.
It's like break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar.
Yeah, give me a break, give me a break, break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. Well, you guys know jingles from a lot of different products. They become quite memorable. I'm unfortunate for me, I'm much older than you guys. In the early days of television, it was all about jingles. I remember jingles from 40, 50 years ago. I remember some of the old cigarette jingles. We don't even have cigarette advertising on television anymore. But know that each one of these things is an element that can relate to a brand. Or maybe another way of saying that is each of these elements are things that should relate to a brand. Every one of these is an opportunity for us to have a brand message. And that, I think, is one of the core concepts of chapter 4, is brands really manifest themselves through many, 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 many different things. It's much more than just a logo. Now, remember, I had mentioned the 3 L's of a brand: the look of a brand, the language of a brand, and the way you live a brand. Well, these all sort of fit into that. The look is what we see on a lot of these things. The look of a sign, the look of a logo, the look of a symbol. The language kind of comes into it in things like in a jingle, just even making a jingle memorable, using the term Pringle. You know, they didn't just say, you know, formed potato chips. They just they created a brand and sort of this idea around it. So brands are much more so, or successful brands are typically integrated around a lot of things. So chapter 4 kind of wraps up with criteria that the authors say is criteria you should think about when choosing brand elements, or when identifying brand elements, or creating brand elements. Let's just walk through these very briefly. Number 1, if at all possible, your brand elements should be memorable. Well, we just saw examples of that. Give me a break, break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. It's memorable. It's kind of catchy. You may like it, you may not, but you know, we kind of remember it. Meaningful. Brand elements should, if possible, be meaningful. They should be somewhat relevant. They should appeal to us. So if something is completely random, it's hard for us to sort of attach our brain around it. But look at what Amazon did with their name. They named a company that at the time was going to be the largest bookstore, and they named it after the largest river. So they just made an association that kind of put a little extra meaning into the word. Now, is a Google something? Yes, there is a definition of Google, and I would guess that 999 out of 1,000 people didn't know what a Google was before Google came out, but they were memorable without necessarily being meaningful. But if you can be meaningful, you should. Ideally, brand elements should be likable. Think of those characters. What if Candy had a really nasty character? It might not be as fun. Or if you have a bad guy character, you probably need a good guy, which actually they do in a lot of food. I'm trying to think of like Lucky Charms. Larry showed that. Larry's got this thing about marketing cereal. Every presentation he ever does, he's got cereal. He brought in Kix cereal, and Kix hired a company to make healthier Kix cereal, and it was a dismal failure, and he went up and bought like 10 of the last boxes of the new Kix cereal. And so for 2 or 3 years, when he would come to my classes, he would come with boxes of the new cereal and the old cereal, and he'd have students come up and try the cereal, and oh my, and these were just disgusting sugar chemical cereals. I mean, I apologize if you really like Kix, but I didn't really like it, but I use it as the example that a lot of the cereals that are targeted towards kids, you have sort of happy characters. And if there's bad characters, well, the good characters always win. They're always likable. And you want your brand to be likable. You want your brand not to be, you know, so mean and so fierce. Even to the point of, if you're a brand like Harley Davidson, you want that brand to be tough, but you want it to be likable tough. So likable is very important. Transferable. So transferability, what do we mean by that? Well, can the brand transfer some of its brand character to another potential product? So think of it this way. Think of a car brand and what that brand is about. And if the brand is strong enough, then they can transfer the ideas and the elements of that brand to different car models. So Mercedes-Benz is one of those that I often say. When we talk about the Mercedes brand, we talk about quality, we talk about sometimes cost, we talk about performance in a car, we talk about luxury in a car. Well, if they just came out with like a low cost pickup truck that was going to compete with a Ford F-100, I don't think that Mercedes brand would really translate to that very well. Now, if they came out with a badass $85,000 really cool pickup truck, maybe they could. But if you can, think of brands as being growing, living, breathing things, and you might come out with what we call brand extensions. So if you can carry those brand elements forward, that's a good thing. Adaptability. Can that brand adapt to changes in the market, changes in consumer habits? Can a brand change over time by doing things like updating a logo, maybe streamlining colors? Ideally, if you're creating a brand, you'd like to find a brand elements that are adaptable to change. And then the last one, which I think is from a true standpoint of growing your brand over time, I think this is one of the more important ones, and that's protectability. Can you create a brand that is something that you can kind of own and not really worry too much about other people infringing upon? Think of that really weird, that other weird cereal that Larry had in his presentation, the one that had like zombies on one of them, and it was like weird flavors. He was talking about that plant and some kind of, weird flavors. I don't know that there's anything about that that is really protectable. Have I ever seen weird characters on cereal boxes? Yeah. Have I ever seen weird flavors? Yeah. Do I even remember what those flavors are? Nope. I just don't think that's very protectable. Whereas something might be very unique. Apple Computers chose a logo, an icon that honestly is kind of hard to copy. There have been other companies that have sort of tried to use different kinds of apples, different graphics for apples. They've tried to use oranges. They've tried to use pears, and they failed miserably. And so Apple hasn't really had to work that hard in protecting against those. They've actually had to work much harder over things like counterfeits than anything else. But if you think about this, I think this is important for you guys, because as we go through this semester and you look to create a brand, this is going to be one of the checklists I'm going to want you guys to look at. Let me just check my notes and see if there was anything else from that. While I'm doing that, does anybody have any questions on this? On brand elements, understanding what brand elements are. There's a couple good case studies in this chapter. Sometimes they talk about packaging. Sometimes they're talking about the product, but there's a lot of short little case studies that have talked about. Starbucks is in there, Chipotle is in there. I think just some good things for you guys to look at. My suggestion on this is, I'm not going to be testing a lot of detail on this, but I'd really like you to have down the understanding of what these main brand elements are and how they can help us create uniqueness and differentiation in a brand. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing this one. Remember, I will be posting this tomorrow. And I'm going to call up a second PowerPoint that we'll get to and get through very quickly. And that's for chapter 5. And let me share that one. Okay, come on, ready, go. Click through. Let me try and share it again. There we go. Can you guys read the slide that says marketing programs to build brand equity? Yes, thank you. So where chapter 5 picks up is to start to say, what are some of the programs we can do to build brand equity? Remember, a cornerstone, a foundational concept for this class is a concept of brand equity. We want to grow the value of our brand. We want people to see it more, be aware of it more, have good associations to it, like it, prefer it, buy it, and then become loyal. Remember, we have kind of those stages that we go through. So now's the time where we can start talking about marketing programs that actually do that. And we'll continue to talk about these marketing programs as we go on through this semester. But let's hit on sort of the highlights when this concept is introduced in chapter 5. So the textbook says, as many textbooks do, we cannot look at this in a vacuum without at least acknowledging that there's a lot going on out there. So I tell my students in every single class, you're probably going to get questions from other teachers along the way. And if you go to grad school, it'll happen all over again. And they'll kind of say, what are some of the things that are affecting business today? What's affecting marketing today? Well, it's almost always the same stuff. Technology is changing things dramatically. Customer empowerment is changing every facet of marketing right now. What do we mean by customer empowerment? If you think of advertising 50 years ago, we had billboards, we had magazines, we had television, and we blasted messages out there, and we didn't really care what people said. Well, people can create a blog, they can create a website, they can go on Amazon, they can write comments about us, they can have social media accounts, and they can say very bad things about us. Customers are far more powerful than they were 50 years ago. Media fragmentation, okay, in the old days we had a handful of big newspapers, handful of big magazines, handful of big TV stations or networks. Now we have hundreds of television stations, thousands of radio stations, thousands of magazines, literally more than 1 billion websites. Now, the last study I saw said that half of those are probably not being used in any way, shape, or form. But even if we said 100 million active websites, that's 100 million different media entities. So media is very fragmented. You can go to very small, highly focused, highly targeted types of media. Digital media has changed dramatically. Mobile media is changing the way we're doing things right now. I don't think experts thought mobile marketing was going to become very important. I don't think anybody 5 or even 10 years ago realized how quickly and how completely we were going to shift to mobile. When we look at building websites right now and we look at the research, I'm doing this for a client right now, the estimate now is that 80 to 90% of the retail traffic that my client will get will come through a phone, not a laptop, not a desktop, a phone or a tablet device. So mobile has dramatically changed the way we look at marketing. Increased competition because anybody can start a company. Almost anybody can start a company. And globalization. So you can have competition from around the world. You can be competing with people around the world. So the competition goes up. Unfortunately, that often means the cost goes down, and that puts a lot of pressure on us. But these are some of the new perspectives the textbook talks about. I'm going to use this for this moment to talk about a concept that's not in the textbook, but I think this is where it fits. And Larry touched on this today. And that is the concept of the marketing umbrella. And I usually do this in class. I do it in every marketing class that I talk about. But if we think of marketing as kind of this umbrella term, all the stuff that you see below that, those are all parts of marketing. So as Larry was saying, advertising is a part of marketing, but it's not everything. And in advertising, we have television advertising, radio advertising, magazine advertising, out-of-home advertising. But we also have the whole area of public relations, crisis management, customer relations, government relations, publicity, corporate social responsibility, sponsorships, paid placement, coupons, catalogs, all that stuff falls under marketing. Content marketing, influencer marketing, social media, affiliate marketing, that all falls under the realm of digital marketing. But also things like distribution, research and development, product management, sales functions, brand identity, point of purchase. They're all there. If you had been in school when I was in school as an undergraduate, they would have put branding under here too. Because 40 or 50 years ago, the idea of a logo was pretty much synonymous with branding. Branding meant you had a logo, you designed a logo. But we've really come to believe that branding means much more than that. I know I touched on this in the very first week, but this is where I want to sort of reiterate this. Branding has become more of an above marketing concept, even sort of higher. Branding is sort of high level strategic marketing thinking. Now, I will tell you, some other professors will disagree with me on this. This is what I see in the marketplace. This is the world I work in every day from about 8 o'clock in the morning till about 6 or 7 o'clock at night. And this is what I see. You ask a CEO of a company what he knows about their marketing, and he'll say, go talk to my director of marketing. But if you say, are you interested in your own brand? And they'll say, I'm very interested in how my brand is seen, how it's perceived, what kind of value it has. So it's become sort of this high-level strategic thinking. So one of the things that we're going to look to do is to get the most out of our branding is to begin using a lot of these different marketing methods, all these things down here. Every one of those is available to us. Every one of those. There are not only dozens or hundreds, there's literally thousands of different ways of marketing. Millions of different places to market. You know, billboards alone, there's somewhere between 500,000 and 1.5 million billboards in the country. It's a lot of different billboards that you can place your ads on. There's many different ways to market, many different places to market. I want to make sure you understand and know this. Remember, if I put 3 letters on a slide or I talk about it in class, know what those 3 letters are. In the case of IMC, it stands for Integrated Marketing Communications. And by that, what we mean is we've learned that by integrating a message using a common brand message in our television, on our website, in our radio ads, in our newspaper, it's much more effective than if the television has one story and PR is using different language and they talk about different things, and in radio they talk about different things. When they're disjointed, customers don't remember. But when we integrate the message or make the message the same across all different types of media, it starts to become much more effective. Now, those of you that had me before, I probably brought this up in class. I call this Hemsworth's 7 Pillars of IMC. I don't say Hemsworth's because I really care for any credit on it. I put it on there because you will not find this anywhere in a textbook. This is just sort of the way I break down IMC. And these are the 7 main areas that I see. One is advertising, and by that I define that as paid advertising, but you have many, many, many different ways to advertise. Public relations, which includes relationship management, media management, community, government, customer relations, corporate social responsibility, and unfortunately, when things go bad, crisis management falls under public relations. There's a category that I call non-advertising promotion, and that just is a place where stuff that's kind of related to advertising goes, but it's not necessarily paid and placed. So things like discounts and coupons and giveaways, premiums, offers, sponsorships, that's all a part of marketing. Personal selling, Larry mentioned this today, personal selling, the person who works at Nordstrom, at the car dealership, the guy who's trying to sell you your car. Customer service, those are all personal selling. Event marketing or experiential marketing, trade shows, consumer events, sampling, test drives, even trying on clothing at a store or trying on shoes, that's all experiential. Social media, you can have owned social media sites. You can earn social media gravitas by people wanting to come to your sites. You can also have sort of crowdsourced where your brand gets spoken of very highly, but you don't have anything to do with it. And then I kind of have the seventh one, which is everything else. Packaging falls under their content marketing. And just even the concept of doing things specifically for branding. Oh, let's add a character. Well, that's not advertising, it's not PR, but it's definitely marketing. So know that as we want to begin integrating marketing and we want to grow our brands, these are the tools that we have to do that. So the textbook says, when we experience a brand, we're typically going to experience it in one of four ways. The first one being sensory. Can we see it? Can we touch it? Can we feel it? Well, if you're thinking about the logo or just the brand element, the answer may be you can probably see it. You can sometimes hear it. You know, when a company has a jingle that you recognize, you might be able to hear that. You might be able to see it. But if you talk about things like touch or taste, that actually comes out of probably when you try the product or the brand itself. So if you talk about Kraft macaroni and cheese, many of us have probably tried that. So we actually have a sensory experience of taste with that brand. So know that our senses play a part of how we experience a brand. The affective way we experience a brand, how it causes changes to our feelings. A brand can make us feel good about something or feel bad about something. Can anybody think of a brand that is sort of known for creating a feeling? Anything come to mind?
Would alcohol count?
It could, but instead of just how alcohol makes you feel, think about the way a brand might make you feel. So an example of that might, what's that?
Disney makes you feel happy or whatever.
Yeah, it's, you know, that's back to that brand mantra thing. One of those words in there is probably going to be family and it's probably going to be fun, right? But also think about things like, you know, how do you have a good feeling about a tire? Well, you know who does that? Michelin. Michelin doesn't sell their tires on being super performance oriented. They are performance. They don't say they're the cheapest ones. They don't always say they're the best mileage. But what they do say is they're the safest. Can you think of a car that has a similar brand experience that is affective, not effective, but effective? It has the effect.
Subaru.
Subaru is kind of coming up on that. I think for a lot of years it would have been Volvo. You know, there were lots of Volvo ads that just said, they didn't say we're the fastest car, they didn't say we're the cheapest, but they'd say we're the safest. I actually wrote a spec commercial. It never got produced. But I wrote a spec commercial that was a young couple, a guy and a girl, and they're going to her parents' house for dinner. And they pull up and you don't really see the car, and they go to the front door and mom and dad come and greet them. And this young couple that's obviously just married walks in, and they're kind of looking at each other a little bit, and they're almost like giggling a little bit under their breath. And as dad is closing the door, he kind of looks out and he realizes they're now driving a Volvo. And as they're walking in, he simply says to the son-in-law, "Do you two have something to tell us?" Never once talks about babies or safety, but the whole implication of that commercial was you drive a safer car when you have kids. And so it was to create the feeling that Volvos were safe. Now, not every brand can do that very well. You know, I worked for a company that, I worked for a industrial magazine, and we had a lot of clients that made generators. Not real easy to have a great feeling about generators. You put gas in them, you turn them on, they're loud, they smell. You know, how do you have a great feeling? The most successful ad that I did for one of those clients was a campaign where we talked about safety and security, that our generators lasted longer. And so you would feel safer if there was an emergency, that you'd have electricity for longer. Behavioral, some brands will actually make you behave differently. You could act differently. Easy way of sort of thinking about that, think about Nike. You get a new pair of running shoes, you almost want to go out running, right? Oh, I got my new shoes. Oh, these feel great. Maybe they're basketball shoes. Oh, I think I can jump higher. You might have a brand that actually can create some change in your behavior because of the way you experience it. And then there's other brands that just make you, I was going to use the word feel, but that really would have been affective, but make you think about things differently, that maybe make you consider things. Maybe you, let me think of a product, or if you guys think of a product that you have an intellectual contact with. Can anybody think of a product that you have sort of an intellectual contact with? So one that comes to mind to me, newspapers. I don't get a newspaper anymore. I haven't gotten a newspaper for years at my house. When I travel, I often pick up a newspaper in the city I'm in. I still think a newspaper is a very easy way to kind of get a vibe of a city very quickly. You see what they're talking about in news, you see what kind of movies are there, you see ads for restaurants, and you kind of get a feel for it. Well, I get the same thing. I did a blog post once and I made reference to an article in the Wall Street Journal, and I had all these different clients that were saying, oh my gosh, you read the Wall Street Journal. I wish I had time to read the Wall Street Journal. Well, I didn't have the heart to tell them I don't really read the Wall Street Journal. I did a search for it. I found an article and I put it in my blog post, but it sure made me look good because everybody thought I was so smart because I read the Wall Street Journal. I wasn't. I was smart because I found an article in it and I put it in my post and it made me look smart. But that's how something can maybe have an intellectual experience with a product. Does that kind of make sense? I mean, it's a little bit of a academic way of looking at brand experience, but those are 4 ways that we can actually experience a brand. So that's really the whole idea of a brand experience is the cornerstone concept of this, and that there's many, many different marketing ways. And the textbook, which we don't have time to do right now, goes into lots of these ways where you can look at a product or an ad or packaging and break it down to very finite elements. Just know that you can do that with every one of those things on this slide. Every one of those can affect the branding. But here are some of the, kind of at the end of the chapter, it goes through a number of things that can be, that they consider to be important concepts in experiencing brands or in marketing. So one of the things that they talk about is there are new types of marketing. Experiential, I just mentioned that a few minutes ago. Permission marketing, the concept of actually talking to people and asking them, are you okay if I send you information about my product? What we've learned is if customers say yes, we've already created a relationship with them and they're more trusting of us, simply because we asked permission to give them information about our product. Another thing that's emerged is personalized advertising. Do you know that I advertise in some magazines that I can pay extra and have the person who subscribes to the magazine have their name printed on the page in the magazine? So in other words, my bicycle client, if Bob Johnson subscribes to Bicycling Magazine, I can buy an ad that says, hey, Bob Johnson, check out this bike. I can literally personalize the advertising. We can do the same thing on the internet. We can personalize. Those are 3 relatively new versions of marketing on top of all the traditional ones. Your product can actually have a brand strategy to it. Remember that a product is one of the 4 P's of marketing, so it's also going to have relevance to the brand. And what I would tell you is finding the right product, you don't really notice the branding because it should be transferable and it should be easy to sort of see. The examples that I gave of Mercedes-Benz, if their cars are a little more expensive or a little bigger or a little smaller, we'll accept that it's Mercedes. But we don't necessarily think of dump trucks, Mercedes-Benz dump trucks. That might be a part of their product strategy to say, listen, we can build a great dump truck, but it's not really a part of our brand. You go too far away from the concept or character of the brand and you're probably not going to do as well. You can also think about marketing to people after they purchase a product. Can you create a loyalty program? Can you guys think of any products that maybe you've purchased or are aware of that have some kind of a marketing designed to happen after they buy it? What pops into your mind? Go ahead.
I was gonna say like Bumble socks, where if you buy one, then you're gonna donate a pair of socks to like a charity or something.
Yeah, and so they might be telling you that in advance, but it's something that's actually going to happen afterwards. And when they do that, or when Tom's Shoes says they're going to donate some shoes, you buy a pair and they'll donate a pair. Let me ask you, Angel, how would that make you feel as a consumer?
I think it makes you feel good because you feel like you're not just purchasing, you're not being selfish in a way. You're buying something, but by doing that, you're having a good effect on somebody else somewhere else.
Yeah, maybe I helped a little bit. Maybe I helped a little bit. Anybody have any other ideas on how you might use post-purchase marketing? I'll give you a real easy one. Frequent flyer programs. I'll give you another one. A Ralph's or a Vaughn's club card. You bring the card, you get to save money, you get to apply that money to something later. My wife just told me that she used up our last 2 months Ralph's points and she got 40 cents off a gallon when she filled up her gas tank. That's a post-purchase marketing effort, right? So we generally think of marketing as what you do before, but know that with a brand, we can create this longer relationship with customers. That's part of the idea of branding, is it's not just a one-time, one-hit wonder sale, but we want to create relationships because we value that customer for a longer period of time. Know that pricing can be a very important part of a strategy. I won't take the time now because we're starting to run short on it, but pricing, price too low and people don't think it has value. Price too high and they can't afford it. I have a very, very sophisticated pricing model that I tell clients. This is exactly how I say it to them. If your price, if nobody ever complains about your price, it's too low. If everyone complains about your price, it's too high. Man, if people complain about it every once in a while, you're probably in the right price zone. And I know that really doesn't sound very sophisticated, but I found that to work very well. You do pricing that's too far away from how people see your product or your brand, they're less likely to buy it on either end. So you need to sort of have a strategy of how you're going to price related to your brand. And also know that channel strategies, I'll talk more about push and pull marketing when we have a little bit more time, but what do I mean by channel strategies? Well, there are some people that might want to sell their products only through certain places. So if you are Apple, you cannot buy Macintosh products everywhere. Not every store gets them. Not every computer store gets them. You can buy them in Best Buy. You can sometimes buy them at Fry's, but they actually stopped selling through a lot of the department stores they originally sold through. You can buy from the Apple Store online. You can buy from an Apple Store at a mall, but you can't just go to any company because they want to sort of control the channels that they distribute. And so know that you can advertise or market through different channels. So the key concept behind Chapter 5 is when we're looking to build our brand equity, we have a lot of different marketing ways to do that. And we begin the exploration of how we do that through different ways. These 2 chapters right now, I think will be very good for you to review again in the second half of the semester when you're creating brands, because there's lots of good information there on how a new brand might use marketing methods. So does anybody have any questions on that? I knew we weren't going to have more than an hour for these 2, so I kept these pretty short. I will be posting these. I'd be happy to answer any questions right now, and if there are no questions, I'll tell you what your homework assignment is and we'll be done. Any questions? Questions? No? Okay, I don't have the homework posted up there yet, but I will have it up there tomorrow, but it's very, very simple. You're doing research right now on a brand. I've asked you to do somewhere, 5 pages or more. researching a brand. Hopefully you guys, when you've picked your brands, hopefully it's a brand you like, a brand that you have interest in, maybe in that company, in that brand, or maybe even just the marketplace. And one of the things right in the middle of that assignment, I mentioned, I want you to identify brand elements. But we didn't really talk about that too much. I gave you a couple examples. Your homework for this week is, and you can do it for a different brand if you want to, but my recommendation is do it on the brand you're researching right now that you owe me a paper for in 2 weeks, and go through the brand elements. Identify and describe the brand elements that you are aware of for that brand. And here's what I would like you to do. I'd like you to have at least 10 brand elements. So the easiest way to do this, in my opinion, let me just go back to my notes here real quick. And I'm giving this to you because, why do I give you things like this? Can anybody tell me why I make assignments easy? Well, ultimately, I want you to learn. I don't really care about the grade as much. But I do this also because I'm a nice guy. So I'm going to share this just real quick because this is the way I think you should do your homework. You don't have to do it this way, but this is the way that I think would just make it really easy. Sharing this real quick. Go back when you see this slide where we talk about common brand elements. Sorry, it didn't pop up yet. Pop up. There, common brand elements. We talked about this about 15 minutes ago. Look at the brand name of the brand. Look at the URL, their website address. Do they have logo or logos? Do they have symbols? Another one I can throw in there. Do they have trademarks? Do they have patents? Do they use characters? Do they use spokespeople? Do they use slogans? Do they have jingles? Do they have packaging? Do they have signage? Anything that really relates to identifying or differentiating the brand. So if you've chosen a brand that maybe doesn't have as much, you can choose another brand for your homework assignment, but I'm hoping you can apply this to the research you're doing. And all I really want you to do, is to try and find about 10 brand elements related to your brand and simply identify them and then just write a sentence, 2 sentences about each one, or bullet points, I don't care, that are explaining what the brand element is and how it relates to the brand. So if it was a McDonald's sign, you might say, this brand element is signage, and it uses the golden arches M, and it uses their colors from their brand palette, and it applies to, you see the same colors used throughout all of McDonald's marketing. Got it. And then you might talk to me about their website, or you might talk to me about the logo itself. You might talk to me about any of these other characters that they use. We don't use Ronald McDonald anymore, but they did. Are there other spokespeople? Do they have a jingle? Can anybody tell me what's in their jingle right now that we hear on their ads?
I'm loving it.
I'm loving it are the words. That's a slogan, which is definitely a part of that. And doesn't the guy in the thing, doesn't he do something like he goes, ba-da-bum-bum-bum-bum? Like the guy literally sings the jingle now. And it's a guy doing it. And that's sort of become a part of the character of that. So that's your homework. Find 10 brand elements. I suggest you do it for the brand that you're researching. Identify them. Write a sentence or two, how it relates to the brand, and that's it. This should be a relatively easy one, and this is going to help you with that paper. Anybody have any questions on the homework? Okay, so we're going to go, let me just look at the schedule here real quick. Get this in front of me. So that paper is due in 2 weeks, which is on the 24th. The week after that, the first week of October, we're not going to have any new material unless we're a little bit behind. That week will be a review, and you'll have a midterm on October 8th. I will prepare you for that midterm by doing the review and giving you a study guide for it. But as of right now, we're going to have about 2 more weeks of new material, and then we're going to try and synthesize that. And I think the one other thing I was going to look at, did I put it on there? I am going to assign you the creation of the brand, kind of your final big project, I will be assigning that to you probably the week prior to the midterm, because I want to give you as much of the rest of the semester to do that. But that's just kind of a look at what we're going to do the next couple weeks. We're going to go through probably another couple chapters, 2, maybe 3. We're going to stop there. We'll go back and review it all. We'll have a midterm on it. And then I'm going to we'll still be going through the text in the second half of the semester, but we're going to start focusing more on your projects during that time. Any questions, you guys? I'm going to stay here as usual to see if you guys need anything else. I'm going to stop my sharing right now. I'll answer any questions. If not, you can shoot me emails. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being very patient. Thanks for not throwing things at Larry for talking so fast. But I appreciate you guys being here. Thanks for having your cameras on. And if you have questions, reach out to me. And if not, I will see you all next week.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Professor, have a good night.
Thank you.